Hi, I'm Bill Pearis, an editor at Brooklyn Vegan, and you are listening to BV Interviews, which features conversations with some of our favorite artists. This week, we're talking to Taja Cheek, who you may know as Lorraine. Taja and I talk about the fourth Lorraine album, Fata Morgana, which she says is the final part in a quadrilogy that began with her self-titled 2017 debut. We also discussed her already busy summer of shows, including sharing the stage with Tortoise in NYC and an appearance at Wilco's Solid Sound Festival, plus the double-edged sword of the experimental musician tag, how Lorraine songs are brought to life on record, upcoming touring plans, and more. All right, let's get into it. Here's my interview with Lorraine's Taja Cheek. I'm pleased to have on the show today musician, artist, curator Taja Cheek, who has been making music for the last decade as Lorraine. Her new album, Fata Morgana, is out via Mexican Summer. Taja, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
How's your summer been? A lot of extremes in Brooklyn lately.
I saw a meme the other day that just had a bunch of Lisa Frank dolphins, kind of just swimming around in the sky. And that's definitely what it felt like for a little while.
Were you here for the July 5th crazy heat wave where transformers were blown all over the place?
I definitely was also there for that. So along with Lisa Frank, there's also, heat waves of doom. But that's the modern era.
Yeah. Did you suffer through brownouts on that Friday?
I didn't, thankfully.
Okay. I live in Williamsburg, and the population here has probably tripled in the last 20 years, but the power grid is still the same from the 70s or maybe before. There were fires coming out of manholes.
It's insane.
It really felt like end times.
There are a lot of moments that feel like the end times these days.
Mm-hmm. You've actually been pretty busy this summer, a lot of cool shows, all of which I unfortunately missed. Any particular highlights?
Oh, man. I mean, the show with Tortoise was obviously amazing to just kind of bask in that. And then we also played Wilco Solid Sound Festival, and that was extremely special. And I haven't really been to a festival like that in quite some time. And it renewed my faith in music in some ways. Not to be dramatic, but it kind of did.
It's a unique festival in America, at least for the most part.
Yeah, it really is. I'm deeply grateful that we were able to participate. And Nels got on stage for a song as well, which I will remember for a very, very long time.
Oh, during your set?
Yes.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like it and Big Ears are probably the only things like that in that are happening in America.
Oh, definitely. Big Ears is the absolute best. I can't wait to go back just as an attendee, honestly.
I've gone a few years and it's definitely special.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your new record a little bit. Press releases sometimes include things that journalists latch on to, which maybe the artist wasn't really intending to be a thing. And in the case of your new album, the press release says Fata Morgana is being billed as the final piece in a quadrilogy. Mm-hmm. And did you really feel that? Mean it that way?
Yeah, I did. I think, I've built a world with Lorraine, and the whole point of this project, and maybe even of making music sometimes, is for me to push myself to do different things. Lorraine isn't ending anytime soon, but just wanting to really kind of test the limits of what I can do and what this project can encompass. So I really think of these 4 albums as being companions to one another. And hopefully whatever I do next will feel like something else, maybe. I mean, the Lorraine-ness will always be there because it's me and I can't get rid of it. But yeah, just a way of pushing myself artistically.
Okay. Did you have an idea early on when you started this that there would be 4 records, or did it just when you started making this one, you're like, no, this is the last one for this?
It just kind of happened. I actually kind of resisted it because my collaborators especially Andrew and Ben a little bit too, were telling me that it really kind of felt like this is the end of a chapter or something. And I generally, when people try to tell me things, I try not to listen. So I was really resisting it. And then the more I kept working on the record and just reflecting on it, it really felt like, yeah, I don't know, maybe something new will come out of the ashes.
How do you feel that this one is different than the previous three, or is it just like a continuum?
Well, I think every record is pretty different from the last. I'm always trying to do new things and surprise myself first and foremost. One very surprising thing is that we collaborated with the dance hall vocalist, Squeegee Dan.
On July 5th.
Yeah, on July 5th. Yeah, there's an R&B song, which I feel like straight up R&B, which I feel like people wouldn't necessarily expect from me, but is such a part of my, my early music listening life. And then, as a result, just a part of my DNA. There's a lot of things that are different about this record.
Your music is hard to define, I think, as like someone listening to it. You're kind of pigeonhole proof, but I feel like I know a Lorraine record when I hear it. But I actually think the title of the record, Fata Morgana, works pretty well as like a description of your sound. But that wasn't until I looked it up to see what it actually meant. And it's sort of like a mirage that you see on the horizon. And I don't know, like Lorraine albums, I am not 100% sure what I'm experiencing, but I know that it's beautiful.
Oh, that's so nice to say. I mean, that's really what I hope for, is to not be pigeonholed, but to have a real sense of self that I recognize, but also other people can recognize too. So that's great that comes across.
Where did that term come into your knowing?
Fata Morgana. I was looking up concepts for mirages, and actually came across the term, and I wasn't sure about it. And then I was I'm horrible at titles, and was asking a bunch of friends for advice and doing sessions with them to brainstorm. And I wasn't coming away with anything that I felt was right. And then I was having dinner one night and I ran into some past collaborators who created the Pet Rock video. And I texted them, and I was talking to them, and I was like, I'm really trying to find an album title. And they were like, what about, and they sent a bunch of things, and they're like, what about Fata Morgana? And I was like, oh yeah, that's that title that I was thinking about seriously, but I wasn't sure about it. And I was like, they're on to something, and maybe I was on to something. So I revisited it, and then it ended up being the title.
What does it mean to you in relation to the record?
I think about distortion a lot. I was looking up, different ways of thinking about mirages, because I was thinking a lot about distortion of the self and distortion of self-image, and how that's negotiated, and how truth is sometimes up for grabs in ways that are good and bad. And just kind of thinking about myself within this moment. And, I think there are a lot of moments where a lot of us have to decide when we accept what's happening and when we don't. And then we kind of push back, or we offer an alternative. And I was thinking about that for myself on a very small, maybe somewhat inconsequential level and also just thinking in a meta level about my career within those terms as well.
You said you push against being like pigeonholed or like defined in a genre, but does that end up like backfiring when it comes to labels trying to market you and stuff like that?
Well, I think it backfires for a lot of reasons. Not necessarily that particular scenario, but I think I used the term experimental as a way of finding freedom when I was first starting this project and really trying to assert myself as a person that can do whatever they want to do and to establish that as the norm. And I think I have done that. But I also think that it can place limitations on people's imagination for what I can do, what kind of impact I can have, and what kind of spaces I should and can be in. And yeah, I don't know, something about the term experimental and also the way that you're describing my music as being hard to pin down, like that really, yeah, I'm questioning that as a frame now. But I think I'm purposefully making music in this way as a political position. And I don't think I should or necessarily have a problem finding an audience or finding people that enjoy that. I think, but it does kind of purposely push against these structures that the industry has put in place for questionable reasons, but also for very practical reasons. So I'm negotiating that and for myself and wondering what alternatives I have to describe myself and my sound.
I'd say it's hard to describe in a few words, but I feel like your music's very easy to enjoy. It's, you know, it's very cool, and I'm especially digging this new record. When I heard Soulless Cycle, I became kind of immediately like obsessed with it. I probably listened to it 50 times since it's come out. I mean, you've dabbled in rock before, like on Need Be from I Killed Your Dog, the last record, but you really get loud here. Was that like something that you really wanted to do with this record?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I'm always trying to look for what I haven't done and to see how I might approach it. And that particular song I wrote a really long time ago and I forgot about it. And I found the files when I was beginning to go into the studio, and I was listening to the demo, which is you know, much gentler. But immediately when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is a punk song actually. And in thinking about it more, I was like, oh, I guess I haven't really done that in that way on record. I feel like the band sometimes explores different territories live than it does on record, and that's by design. And there's a part of me that really wanted to bring some of that energy into an album.
I also hear some of that guitar in a different way on the second single, Borderline. Like I call it almost like sheets of metal sort of way, but it's a little more polished metal or something on that track. And when I listen to a lot of your music, it's mysterious to me in that like I have trouble sometimes imagining how it was created. I know you work with a lot of musicians, including Ben and Andrew, who have been your collaborators pretty much from the start. And I was wondering if you could walk me through maybe that song's like germ of an idea through like what we get on the record.
So, yeah, I think that actually was a song that started when I was really thinking about being in a studio space and was just kind of like looking at what was around me and the tools that I had at my disposal. And I picked up a guitar, and I think Jessica Pratt had been in the studio before me, and the strings were kind of in a weird state. I don't know if she'd played it before me. I haven't even talked to her about this, but the tuning was kind of off, and it wasn't exactly even in a tuning. And so then I took it and just like tuned it around where it seemed like it wanted to go. And that was the kind of beginning of Borderline. And then I just started experimenting with hand shapes, and I started playing it in the studio. And then I went to my friend's house in LA and wrote some of the structure and the chords and the lyrics and all of that. And I really just started making a demo for that. And then I usually show, the demo to Andrew and Ben and get their feedback and their associations. Sometimes I have things that are really fully fleshed out from a production sense, where I'm like, this is exactly what this sounds like, and we're going to use this bass sound, or we're going to use this guitar sound. And sometimes we use the things I recorded. Sometimes they're reimagined in some way. I do work with a lot of musicians, but the songwriting is all me for the most part. Yeah, Andrew and Ben are like the two constants in the studio, and the other musicians that are brought in are really brought in to do very specific things that I can't do, where it's like, we'll have Tim Angulo on the drums because I don't play the drums, or, Ben will play the saxophone because he does that and I don't. Or, Zach will play guitar on one specific thing in a way that only Zach does or something. But the rest of it, I really try to keep as lean as I can, and I try to do as much as I can, because it's about me.
Right.
It sounds conceited, but it really is about, like, it's not about making like the thing that sounds the best, whatever that even means. It's about what I can do with my hands.
So songs start in a pretty traditional way, like as a song, you and an instrument, and figuring out and writing the words.
Sometimes, not always. Sometimes that's how that particular song started out. Sometimes it starts with the lyric. Sometimes it starts with the melody. Sometimes it starts with a sample. Like in the case of Blue, that really started with the sample first. And yeah, songs happen in all kinds of ways.
I like the drums on Borderline. It gets almost sort of in jungle drum and bass territory. And is that Timothy playing that?
We usually incorporate electronic drums and acoustic drums. So Tim is playing, and then Ben also has some synth patches that he made and was kind of blending together.
Having seen you all before, I know that like he could do it. I could imagine him like playing with Ronnie Size.
Yeah, I see that.
Like doing those break beats. Speaking of, I mean, when you did Soulless Cycle on that late night Outside Tonight, the YouTube show, that was amazing. And watching him play drums was crazy. Also, you've got a ice sculpturist in that video who also, is it the same person who you had for the Borderline video?
Yes, it's the same person. Actually, Sinke, our friend Sinke is playing drums in that video.
Okay.
But the ice sculpturist, anti-ice sculpturist,
right,
is TJ from A Touch of Ice in Staten Island, and it's the same person. And I hope that you can keep collaborating on things, because he's always so game for the strange ideas that we have and present to him.
Are you going to take him on tour this fall?
I wish I could afford that. If people keep buying tickets to my shows, I don't know, maybe it's possible.
Mm-hmm. How did he come into your orbit?
He really came through my orbit through Mackai Sharp, who directed the two videos that have come out so far. And Mackai and Esther, the producer, are really incredible. They're based in Europe, and they flew in to make these assets with me, and feel so grateful. And they were doing research on a lot of different ice sculptors, and a lot of them really just didn't understand the project and weren't really interested in experimenting, and are like, just give me a swan and a gala. And like, I know what that is. I don't understand what anything else you want me to do is. But TJ was down and was game. And so we've been trying to incorporate him into more and more things that we're doing.
Is the front cover of the album, is that also ice? I couldn't quite tell what that is.
It is. It's a sculpture that I made, actually. I've been sort of experimenting. I don't even really want to call them sculptures, actually. They're like, they're just experiments that plants from my altar, Rose of Jericho plants, which was a huge inspiration for the record in general, just that plant and what it symbolizes and how it exists in the world. And so I was just making these sculptures with, or whatever they're called, in my freezer with, from my sink. And I brought them to my friend Clifford Prince King, who's an incredible photographer. And we just hung out at his apartment and took photos. And yeah, that one ended up being the cover.
And Rose of Jericho, that's one of those desert plants that can look dead for years, right? But if you put it in water, it just blooms right back to life.
You're the first person I've talked to who actually knows what that plant is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
The reason I know that, I will admit, do you know the band Proto-Martyr?
Yeah, I do.
So their last album was called Formal Growth in the Desert, and they sent out to some journalists a Rose of Jericho plant, like as a promotional item.
I didn't know that. I have to write to them. We met because we were playing shows right next door to one another a while ago, and we ended up connecting and hanging out, and it was really amazing. I have to write to them about that. I had no idea. That's an amazing connection.
Otherwise, I would have never known.
I love that. I love that there's other people thinking about this plant.
Yeah, I would imagine that like you and their guitarist Greg Ahe would get along really well, and Joe, the singer, is a really awesome person, as are the rest of the band. But
yeah, they're great. They're so great. I'm gonna literally message them after this interview.
You mentioned Screechy Dan before. How did he end up on this record? Had you met him like a while ago, or?
I hadn't. There's a lot of reggae musicians in my general orbit for some reason. And we were looking for recommendations of reggae or dancehall artists that might want to feature on this song. And we kind of knew that was what we wanted fairly early. And ended up getting connected with Screechy Dan, and we had all these things in common and talked a lot about being in Crown Heights, which was really amazing. And, you know, his music was really kind of like a soundtrack of my early days in that neighborhood. So it was like a real full circle moment for me. But what we really ended up talking about was country music and how much he loves roots music. And I remember him telling me something along the lines of like, when I listen to your music, I hear the sound of someone that feels like they're really free. And that made me feel really good. And I was really happy to connect with him. And he was writing in the studio and I got to see a little bit of his process, and it was really special.
So for the end of that song, which is kind of a left turn, like just as a listener, you're not expecting that in the last like minute and a half or whatever. So you envisioned like going in that direction, and you were just looking for somebody to do that?
Definitely a left turn for a listener, but for whatever reason in the studio, I forget how it originally came up, but we all were like, yeah, we kind of hear a dance hall vocalist on this somehow. Something about the texture of it just kind of made sense. And there's this thing in Lorraine world, if there's an absurd idea, usually that's the one we'll follow and the one that we'll pay attention to. And especially if it's something that like all three of us are immediately on board with, we know that that's something to pursue. We didn't know how we would do it. We spent so much time on that transition. It really was probably the thing we worked on the most in the studio, I would say. But we knew that we needed that. But the really interesting moment, I think, for me which was inspired by the Mims' "This Is Why I'm Hot" remix specifically, is the moment where we kind of, where we change the cadence of the beat, basically. And sort of like in the middle of Screechy Dan, in the middle of Screechy Dan's vocal, we kind of like flipped the song.
Yeah.
And that also took a very, very long time to figure out how to do the correct way. And it wasn't a sample. We created it all in the studio.
Wow. Speaking of transitions, I mean, your records are all sort of flow together. And I noticed in the credits on this one that Yuka Honda of Chibomado, she not only plays on it, but she sequenced the album.
Yeah.
Why did you bring her in, or how did that come to be, I guess?
Well, we actually like bringing in other people to sequence the records because it's a very particular world.
It starts out as my weird world, and then I bring Ben and Andrew into this weird world, and we're just so deep in it that we need an outside voice at the end, just to kind of like really keep things fresh and keep us grounded, and also keep us surprised. And generally, we kind of know what the sequence should be, or we fight it out.
Mm-hmm.
And and then we bring someone else in to really kind of get into the nitty gritty of how it happens. Sometimes we're a little didactic about it, or I'll be like, no, it has to be like this. Or sometimes we really kind of give some room to experiment. And so some of the moments on the record that I love so much come from Yuka, where I would give her some fragments of songs and interludes that I made. And I just kind of let Yuka do what she wanted to do with it. And she made some really surprising choices that we love so much that ended up on the final record.
Can you give an example of where something really changed with what she did?
Yeah, I it's very funny. I don't really know the names of any of the songs because I have secret names that I call everything, and then I change the names for the public so that I have something that I can keep for myself.
I understand.
But there are some transitions, like especially the transition to Birthday, I would say. That moment right before was something Yuka Honda put together from all these fragments of sounds that that I made and that I had. And yeah, it was very surprising.
Okay. It almost feels like it's as much in some ways mixing as it is sequencing. I mean, because of the way your songs like fit together.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting process. It is a little bit mixing. Sometimes there's production, I think pretty much everyone has offered some production choices. But yeah, Sloss and Malone 1 sequenced Fatigue, for example.
Okay.
We did actually, a lesser known thing is that Oneotrix actually provided some of the sequencing for Oneotrix Point Number provided some sequencing to I Killed Your Dog. And then we did the rest of it ourselves. And then, yeah, Yuka for this one.
You and Oneotrix, there's a lot of sound design going on with his music and your record.
I mean, he's all-time great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd put myself in his category, but, he's great.
His soundtrack to Marty Supreme, like in some ways makes that movie.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend.
So you've got some touring coming up this fall. How much of the new record did you play at the shows this summer, if any?
Some. There are some songs that we are, that we play that we haven't played live so much yet. But we'll kind of unveil more and more of it as time goes on. We play Soul Cycle, we play Borderline. There's a little bit of Elmira that we've been playing as well, and then Blue. And yeah, we'll kind of see where things go from there.
Mm-hmm. Elmira is going to be the third single, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else coming up that you'd like to tell us about?
Just that we're on the road. That we'll be playing a lot of shows between September and the end of the year. And I'm not saying that there will be shows next year exactly, because I can't reveal that yet, but there will be. But yeah, the focus right now is this year, and we're playing a bunch of shows, and we're really excited about it.
Including 2 nights at Nightclub 101 in New York City.
And what people don't yet know is that I am also putting together the late shows at Nightclub 101 as well. So it's kind of like an after party, but also a show in its own right. And that will be happening after we play on the 28th and 29th.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Taja, I think that's about it I've got for you. Congratulations on the new record. It's amazing, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
Thanks so much for chatting.
Thanks again to Taja Cheek for being on this week's show. Lorraine's new album, Fata Morgana, is out August 14th via Mexican Summer, and you can catch the band on tour in September. Links to all dates are in our show description. While you're still with us, be sure to check out our other podcast, BV Weekly, where my co-workers Dave and Andrew discuss the week's hot button music news, the latest releases, and more. Also, be sure to follow Brooklyn Vegan on social media, check out our online shop with exclusive vinyl, merch, and more. And if you like this episode, be sure to tell your musically minded friends about it, as well as do all those other things, like, subscribe, write us a review, give us 5 stars, all that stuff. It really does help us reach more ears. Big thanks to our mix engineer Nick Gray and Michael Silverstein for the theme music. I'm Bill Pearis. Thanks for listening.